Good day to all our marvelous fans. Stephen King hardly needs an introduction. His works are considered to be some of the finest writings of this time. Widely regarded as his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series is beloved among fans for its stunning appeal and visually stylistic storytelling elements, a notorious blend of science fiction, fantasy, and horror. This series evolves through 8 books and is a cult classic within the genre of speculative fiction. Other than these themes of adventure and fantasy, one of the primary messages in the series revolves around the fate of man and free will. For those of you who have not read it yet, don't worry, we won't spoil all of it for you, but here's a little synopsis that might get you into the books. The protagonist is a gunslinger by the name of Roland Deschain, who's on a quest to find the mythical Dark Tower, a strange structure that serves as the central axis of all world, and whose preservation and/or destruction can have implications on a cosmic level. On his way, Roland uncovers mysteries about himself and his past, and makes acquaintances and enemies, all while trying to protect the fate of the world. The Dark Tower is central to the plot of the story, but what is it really? It's a metaphysical structure that connects all worlds and serves as a focal point in the multiverse. It holds the secrets to not just Roland's quest, but also that of the mysteries of the universe. The Dark Tower Bestiary, which is what we'll be taking a look at in today's video, refers to the number of supernatural and mythical creatures that are introduced at various points in the series. These are unique creatures who are all connected to the Dark Tower in some way, and while some of them are native to Midworld, others can be found scattered across the universe. Each creature plays a role in Roland's quest. Let's take a look at some of the most iconic creatures and beings from the Dark Tower series. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Oi, Billy Bumbler. Oi is among the fans' favorite characters. He's a Billy Bumbler, a mythical creature that looks like a civet. He's a member of Roland's quartet and approaches them timidly. Jake Chambers soon befriended him. Oi was dismissed from his pack, probably because he was adept at mimicry. In fact, his name comes from when Jake called him boy, and he replied with oi. Later, Oi is instrumental in finding Jake, who has been kidnapped, and he's ready to sacrifice himself for Jake. Over time, Jake and Oi become especially close, and are able to exchange bodies in their fight against vampires. He's an extremely intelligent creature who evolves throughout the series, and is later able to talk even more vividly. During Jake's final moments, he's comforted by Oi, who licks his face clean from blood and grime. While the final words exchanged between them are not revealed to fans, it can be assumed that Jake had passed on Eddie Dean's warning about Dandello. After Jake finally passed, Oi lamented his death woefully, which also shows that in addition to his high IQ, he had a reasonable amount of emotional intelligence. Even though he didn't want to abandon Jake's grave, he did because Jake had asked him to, as his dying wish. Oi became more reserved after losing Jake, but never left Roland's side. When he was given an opportunity to escape the terrifying journey to the tower, he sat at Roland's heels instead. His allegiance to Roland, Jake, and the quartet was such that he was ready to sacrifice himself for them more than once. His fate in the series is one that's deeply emotional and poignant, and highlights the theme of the cyclical nature of life. Oi is small and non-human, but is a reminder that love and loyalty can come from anywhere. He's one of the most endearing and memorable characters in the series. Lobstrosities. These are strange creatures that live on the beaches of the Western Sea. They look like a cross between giant lobsters and scorpions that are up to 4 feet long. They have oversized claws that have the power to crush bones, sharp and spiny exoskeletons that have a myriad of colors, and long antennae that twitch when they try to hunt prey. Their eyes are soulless and menacing. Roland observes that these creatures constantly seem to be asking weird questions, like "Dada-chum, dida-chick, dama-chum," and so on. They're also venomous, but edible. A weird fact about them is that they put their claws up in the air when the wave comes from the sea, and Roland called this the honor stance. They hold this position until the waves wash over them. They're carnivorous and hunt primarily at night, which is also when they become more vicious. When Roland is attacked by one of them, he loses his toe and index and middle fingers in his right hand. He's a gunslinger, so this permanently hampers his ability to use guns, which further complicates his quest. This injury also means that he has to rely more on his quartet, which shifts his iconography from that of a lone hero to a group player. This injury also forces him to come to terms with his vulnerabilities, because despite being a master of survival, he was subdued by a creature that's seemingly not a great danger compared to the other threats out there. The Lobstrosities present the threat of a persistent and unpredictable danger in the series that does not always follow logic or reason. Cantoy Men. The Cantoy are humanoid creatures who are employed by the Crimson King. They can pass for human beings at a distance, but are starkly different in most aspects. They serve the Crimson King in his ambitions to destroy the Dark Tower and unravel the very nature of reality. While the Low Men try to look like humans, they do not really get the specifics correct, because they favor yellow coats and garish jewelry, which makes them stand out even more. Upon closer view, one notices artificial faces and oozing red patches on their foreheads. When Susanna Dean rips away at their mask, they're revealed to have rat-like faces and heads, and the wound they have on their forehead is from where the mask, which is a living organism in itself, grows and breed. They have sharp teeth, glistening eyes, whisker-like features on their face, and are associated with a faint stench of decay and filth. Some accounts mention that the Cantoy are a mixed race developed as a result of mating between humans and the Tahen, which is a more classical humanoid creature. They try to look like humans not just to blend in and gain information, but also because of a belief that they are evolving into humans. This is why they're called Low Men. They're extremely cunning and deceptive creatures who infiltrate societies in the Midworld and Keystone Earth, all the while spreading the propaganda of the Crimson King. However, they are cowardly and opportunistic creatures, and barely engage in direct combat unless there's a surety of them winning. The Cantoy serve as a powerful symbol of the breakdown of natural order through their humanoid nature. Tahen. They are a race of humanoid creatures with the heads and often limbs of animals and the bodies of humans. Interestingly, they bear a striking resemblance to ancient Egyptian gods such as Anubis and Horus. They consider humans to be lesser beings, though they themselves are not an elevated or guided race. They're prone to evils such as pornography and crude jokes just like human beings. Unlike the Cantoy, the Tahen do not disguise themselves as humans and are mostly seen wearing clothing suited to war. Their eyes often gleam with both malice and intelligence, which hints at their higher tactical ability. Despite their animalistic features, they're able to think complex thoughts. They're fiercely devoted to the Crimson King and work on his every whim. Many of them have superhuman abilities, like excessive speed or strength, which makes them very formidable in combat situations. Moreover, they have enhanced qualities due to their animalistic nature and characteristics. They're not cowardly like the Cantoy and are expert warriors. They're able to strategize and execute complicated plans for the Crimson King, and also possess very advanced technological knowledge. In the series, the Tahen oppose the Katet numerous times, and are a significantly bigger threat than the Cantoy. Vampires. These play a major role in the Dark Tower series, and are servants of the Crimson King. They're characterized by insane bloodlust and can also propagate bloodborne illnesses. Father Callahan says that there are 3 types of vampires primarily. Type 1 vampires are the rarest to find and consequently the most powerful as well. They look like humans, except that they have fangs and sometimes their eyes can glow. They possess superhuman speed and strength, and can hypnotize their victims. However, like traditional vampires, they do have some weaknesses, such as the sun, which burns their skin. They cannot enter a premises unless explicitly invited in, and are also repelled by religious symbols. But this repelling ability depends on the faith of the other person. Prolonged contact with a religious symbol or driving a stake through their hearts can also kill this type of vampire. When they die, they dissolve into a black goo and leave behind only their fangs. Type 1 vampires can also create Type 2 vampires. They often hold high positions among the forces of the Crimson King because of their powers and intellectual abilities. They have regal and aristocratic demeanors, and exude an aura of power. Type 2 vampires are just as strong and fast as Type 1, but are not as intelligent and can be burned to death by the sun. They also live very short lives, characterized by extreme hunger. They can create other Type 2 vampires as well as Type 3 ones. Their behavior is more animalistic and driven by bloodlust, and are therefore used as foot soldiers by the Crimson King. They're beast-like in appearance with glowing eyes and demonic features. Type 3 vampires are human in appearance and can go out in the sun and do not solely rely on blood for sustenance. They can eat normally like other humans. While they drink blood, they cannot create other vampires. Their bites can put their victims into a trance-like state and also erase their memory. They turn into dust after being killed. The inclusion of vampires into the series enriches the already gothic atmosphere. Moreover, their inclusion and presence add a reference to the wider Stephen King multiverse, since these creatures are found in other works by King as well. Slow mutants. These are a form of humans who have been exposed to pollutants, mutated and bred into humanoid creatures. They have green skin that glows very dimly in the dark, but in one book they're said to have human-colored skin. They're heavily disfigured due to exposure to radiation and magical corruption, and their bodies are misshapen with extra limbs and odd growths. They're also sluggish and shuffling, and move like zombies, which is probably why they're known by their name. They mostly wear tattered clothes or nothing at all. They're aggressive if provoked, but otherwise quite dim-witted. Despite this, their numbers can be overwhelming in smaller spaces. Roland encounters a band of these slow mutants in the small town who call themselves the Green Folk and are led by Ralph. They assault him and beat him to the point where he's barely conscious, and he's also strung up by them before the little sisters save him. They also have the ability to speak. He and Jake again encounter slow mutants under the Cyclopean Mountains after the Mohane Desert. They're attacked again, but this time Roland is able to kill them. There are different tribes of slow mutants. The children of Roderick are among them, who retain a large measure of their humanity and recognize the authority of the gunslingers. The Total Hogs are rumored to be in possession of the blue bend of Merlin's rainbow. The Cyclopean Muties are run by the Cyclopean leader, who attacks Roland and Jake in the mountains. The slow mutants are symbolic of the questions that can arise when the world breaks down and humanity loses hold on itself. Thinny. A Thinny is primarily a place with eroded reality. Rather than being a creature, a Thinny is a phenomenon of sorts that is in equal parts mysterious and dangerous. Thinnies look like shimmering, translucent ripples in the air, which resemble mirages during a heat wave. And they have distorted edges, which makes it difficult to understand what lies beyond them. The landscape around a Thinny is often desolate, which reflects the disruption it can cause to the surrounding environment. It can sprout limbs and appendages, and trap victims who stray too close to them. A Thinny also emanates a disruptive, wailing sound, which can be hypnotic, and if listened to for too long, maddening. While it's extremely unpleasant to the ear, it's also very captivating and sounds like asking to come in. This sound is very dangerous to those who are weak-willed, for they can be easily lured into the Thinny and consumed by it. Thinnies have become more commonplace ever since the world moved on. Reality distortion and psychological misappropriation are the hallmarks of a Thinny. Objects or beings that enter a Thinny are sent to some unknown hostile dimension from where there's no coming back. The hypnotic siren-like sounds can cause paranoia and madness, and Thinnies can grow over time, distorting more of the landscape around it, creating bends in reality. Roland and his quartet encounter a Thinny near Hambry, and this proves to be a vital challenge for the group to overcome. The presence of Thinnies signifies impending doom, since they weaken the beams holding the Dark Tower together, and this is why the Crimson King and his minions exploit Thinnies to destroy the tower. Little Bald Doctors. These are unsettling entities that appear in the Dark Tower series. The primary job of these entities is to cut the lifeline of any being that has come to pass. Two of them serve the purpose, Clotho and Lachesis, while one of them served the random, Atropos. Clotho and Lachesis would only cut the string of life when the person was about to die, but Atropos did it at random, which is why his victims usually died in random acts of violence or accidents. If the names of these beings sound familiar, it's because they've been derived from the names of the Greek fates: Clotho, who spins the thread of life; Lachesis, who measures the thread of life; and Atropos, who cuts the thread of life. The Little Bald Doctors are identical to one another and look extremely creepy and uncanny. They have no hair, with very smooth and pale skin, and always wear an unnerving blank expression. They're mostly dressed in sterile clinical outfits like those of doctors. Moreover, they often carry very advanced and futuristic equipment that ties them to the Crimson King's empire and the forces of the North Central Positronics. Mudmen, also known as plant men, these are a group of slow mutants who live in lakes. At first, they impede, but later assist Tim Ross, who realizes that the swamp has been growing and the slow mutants under it have also been evolving into Mudmen. Tim meets them for the first time after getting trapped in the ground in the Fagonard swamp, where he's attacked by carnivorous reptilian creatures. He shoots them with Joshua's rifle. The Mudmen were watching all of this from afar, and believing him to be a gunslinger, their spokesman Helmsman offered him food. The Mudmen are later killed by a Stark blast, which they appear to have prior knowledge of and also welcome. Billy Bumbler, also known as Bumblers or Throcken when they're in a group. These are creatures who have black and gray striped fur, gold ringed eyes, and spiral tails. They look like a cross between raccoons, woodchucks, and dachshunds, and somewhat resemble civets from the real world. These creatures are much more intelligent than canines, and were used to primarily herd sheep before the world moved on. Some others were also bred to hunt the grandfather fleas. Billy Bumblers have the ability to mimic whatever they hear, but cannot pronounce them exactly the way they were spoken. They're very sensitive to the approach of a Stark blast, and will always face the north whenever one happens. These are very friendly creatures, even if they are found in the wild. As mentioned already, Oi is probably the most well-known Billy Bumbler in the series. Jesus Dog. Also known as a cross dog, this is a dog which is given the name due to it having a patch of fur shaped like a cross across its chest. This cross keeps the creature safe from the Little Sisters. Roland encounters one for the first time in Illyria, when it's chewing on the leg of the dead James Norman. When Sister Mary tries to stop Roland from escaping the tent of the Little Sisters, Sister Jenna calls the Jesus Dog, which comes and kills Sister Mary. Oracles. Oracles are a sort of lesser demons who feed on human desires. These spirits were trapped within stones and were fed human sacrifices in ancient times. They can be of any gender and can give prophecies if they're offered sex in exchange. While this may sound like a good bargain, it can be extremely dangerous if the person wishing for the prophecy is not well versed in the ways demons operate and can have their soul taken away and devoured. One of the demon elementals came to Roland disguised as an oracle when he found the speaking ring in the Cyclopean mountains. Roland knew about the true identity of the being and asked for information about the man in black and the Dark Tower. Munshun. Munshun is also known as Mr. Lord Munshun, or the Monday Man. He's a demon and a very high-ranking courtier of the Crimson King. He supplies the latter with a steady load of human victims by joining hands with a serial killer named Charles Burnside. Munshun is a very sadistic creature, and has possessed many cannibalistic killers throughout known history, one of the most notable being Albert Fish. His human host accepts his possession voluntarily because he does not necessarily interfere in their work, but simply assists them when they need his help. He lives in a volcanic region of the end of the world, known as the Furnace Lands, where he oversees the working of the Big Combination, which is an enormous power plant rotated by huge turbines, worked on by hundreds of stolen children from many different worlds. The children are driven by creatures that look like lizards and wield whips. Near this place, Munshun also has a small place for his human accomplices, where they can torture and kill their victims with no interference. Munshun is tall and as white as bone, with black nails that resemble claws, a hideously enlarged and elongated head, shark-like teeth, uncanny red lips, and one huge black-colored eye. However, if he's stared at constantly, his appearance seems to change. He wears a black and three-piece suit and a red-colored tie. His waistcoat is buttoned with bones of small sizes. His voice sounds inhuman and he has a strange accent, which sounds like a Frenchman trying to imitate someone speaking English with a German accent. Vagrant Dead. Vagrant Dead are people who have died but not yet moved on. This could be because they have not accepted their death, or have been killed so quickly that they're not even aware that they're dead. They're always found near the places where they died. They're quite scary to look at since they always display the wounds they had received in their lives. When Roland and his quartet were taken to the Todash version of New York City by Black 13, they witnessed some of the Vagrant Dead. Tunnel Demon. This is a huge worm monster that has many eyes, a big mouth full of sharp, large, and needle-like teeth. The mouth of the creature is also lined with tentacles, and it's extremely sensitive to light. How many of these creatures are in existence is not known. When Roland and Susanna were traveling in the tunnels between Feedic and the Badlands, they found themselves being chased by one. However, Roland assumed that it fled through the Todash darkness through one of the doors. Taking advantage of the monster's sensitivity to light, the duo were able to escape it using torches of sternofuel and old bones which Susanna had made. The light emitted by the torches was bright enough to hold the creature at bay, which allowed Roland and Susanna to escape safely. Marvelous Verdict. The sheer number of creatures that we come across in the Dark Tower series is one exhaustive list. Among them, these 15 beings play important roles in the development of the story. While most of them are morally corrupt and serve the Crimson King, some of them are loyal to Roland and his quartet, such as Oi. These creatures and beings are symbols of the larger spiritual and cosmic forces that are at play in the Dark Tower universe. Let us know in the comments if there's anything from the series you would like us to cover in particular. Stay tuned for more marvelous content. We'll be back soon. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.